What's up, guys? Today I wanted to talk about PVK's Ozempic video. First and foremost, because it's clearly in copyright violation of my video. Can Ozempic make you holy? Can Ozempic lead to Jesus? I don't want to say that I made this video a year earlier, but that's exactly what I'm saying. And, I think the lawyers will probably have to get involved, because of this. And, I wish them well. I wish them the best. But, will we have to take this to a superior court? Probably. But what I did want to talk about is in my original video, I talked mostly about sort of exterior global cultural beauty standards and watching the fluctuations in them and the effect that Ozempic would have in those. Whereas in PVK's video, he dives into a New York Times podcast where they're interviewing a couple where one of the members of the couple, the wife, goes under a dramatic weight change because of Ozempic and all the downstream consequences and results of that, which is really fascinating. And I think that diving in more directly into individual relationships and what it happens on a small scale is very valuable to making the point more clearly about the same point that I was making in my original video. But seeing it on a smaller scale is very helpful. And the reason that I'm somewhat so obsessed with Ozempic is because it's such a perfect example of the consequences of technology, because technology basically just means doing more with less. You can dig more holes if you have a shovel, you can cut down more trees with an axe. Technology gives us just the ability to do things more and faster. And when we see things more and faster, you can see the consequences. It's like you can see a forest getting deforested a lot quicker if people are using machines than if people are chopping down trees with a stone. So this Ozempic, it's allowing us to see changes that normally happen very, very slowly over time, over decades or even centuries. And now, bam, oh, I lost 60 pounds in a year. I lost 80 pounds in 2 years. It's like these people's lives have changed so much, which goes to show, what's under the waterline, what we don't talk about, which is like weight is very important to people, whether or not we like to say that. And so I wanted to talk today about talking about those changes, talking about those shifts happening so quickly over time, and seeing what we can learn about how we form our relationships with one another, and how we do it in the most sort of intimate and oftentimes one of the most sacred bonds that we have, which is marriage. One disclaimer is I do want to say that, I don't view Ozempic as good or bad inherently, and I don't view the people who take it as good or bad inherently either. And there's a lot of reasons to take it. I just want to point out some of the consequences and some of the things that it can show us. It's very easy to judge from the outside, and I think oftentimes how many conversations, that's bad, don't take it, I would never do this, I would never want to do. Okay, just don't take it. Easy Pete's. People are going to take it. You can't stop everybody from taking it. We can just have a dialogue, a discussion on what are the consequences, what are we seeing, and what are some of the unintended consequences. It's funny how people love to jump to, well, there's going to be adverse side effects. It's like, yeah, there's also adverse side effects to every drug you've ever taken ever. Oh, well, really, it's funny how you can tell that people really aren't ready for transformation and changes, because they're like, but Ozempic's gonna have really bad ones. And I'm like, why? What evidence do you have that Ozempic's gonna have really bad ones, seeing as people with diabetes have been taking this exact drug for, coming on a decade now. I don't want to immediately just write off, we should never do it or we should always do it. But let's just start having a dialogue on, like, okay, now that we're seeing these changes, what can we glean and what can we talk about? So we're mostly going to dive into this couple who it's their second marriage. They're remarried, and they have been together for 15 odd years, and now they go through this dramatic weight shift where in a very short period of time, the wife in the marriage loses 60 pounds, and sort of the consequences of what we see from there. So, um, yeah, the shifts I also want to bring up is it can be seen, vows and marriage, that's sort of the topic of the marriage and then shifts. But if you look at vows, you can see that vows put a pretty high ideal on a marriage. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health. I will love and honor you all the days of my life. Those are traditional Catholic vows. For better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, those are traditional Anglican vows. And you know, our cultural teaching from the past gives us a pretty high standard of what is expected in marriage. Now, um, PVK is going to talk about sort of values of a culture.
Are there all these unspoken value judgments that every culture is just full of value hierarchies? They just are. That's what makes up a culture. And many of them are sort of unspoken because often to speak these things changes them. And again, that's why it's so hard to talk about marriage struggles. Well, so all of these value hierarchies are unspoken and people engage with them at different levels. So, body image, he'd like to.
Um, yeah, so basically, he's talking about what does your culture believe? What does it say? And if we look, these vows which have been around for hundreds of years, yes, people have always cheated. Yes, people have always wanted divorces. But the cultural ideal for the longest period was, staying together with one person for the duration of your life. Um, and now we're sort of watching modern marriage as people get divorced, they get remarried. The couple that we're going to see was someone they were both divorced and they get remarried. The ideals of what a marriage is for and what the purpose of it are sort of shifting. Where in here it's supporting one another. It's going through the hardships of life. It's being loving to one another even when things aren't nice. And you see in a lot of modern marriage, the ideals are a little transformed in terms of like, well, we just like each other, we love each other, we like to be around. And as we see that shift, we sort of wonder, well, how is marriage going to respond? But it's been so slow. These shifts have been so slow. And yes, people love to talk about them, but they've been taken over time. There are very few people, even to this day, most people have vows in their wedding. They don't want to take them out. That's a big part of the wedding. And yet, even though we often know, oh, well, they're not really going to hold themselves. They're not going to, the people all here believe in divorce. They believe that if people are unhappy in their marriage, they should be able to divorce. So why are they saying till death do us part? Why are they saying I'll love you for the rest of my life? Um, but now you add this other layer of the Ozempic, and you're really seeing like all of a sudden, what did we create when we got married? What were we actually building? And I think that to talk about what are we creating, what are we building, I'm going to use another idea from PVK, which is PVK's ideas of the tufa formations, which are these sedimentary deposits inside of lakes. There's a specific Lake Mona in California that is famous for these. But when the water line is high, you can't really see them. You see a peaceful lake. But when the water line recedes, you kind of get these strange rock formations that have been going on under the surface the entire time. And so at this point, what I want to talk about in Ozempic is to say, like, I think that Ozempic represents a sudden revelation of what was under the surface the entire time. That, people who get married, they both agree to this thing. They're both happy to enter into their marriage. But now suddenly when there's a shift in how people feel about their bodies, how they feel about themselves, you reveal what is the actual marriage built upon. And so that's really what I want. Like, oh, well, there's a new revelation going on because of Ozempic. There's a new thing that's being shown to me, because now I get to see all of a sudden someone go through such a dramatic transformation, a transformation they never thought they'd be able to go through. And now, what does that say? What does that show us about all their other relationships? Um, So before I get into the clip, this is the couple. Like I said, they've been second marriage, dramatic transformation. Suddenly, one person is much less heavy than they were before.
Analogous to psychedelics. What if I could obtain the results of what would have been a lot of spiritual effort, a lot of mortification, a lot of spiritual disciplines by curbing my passions and desires? What if I can get it in a drug? And now the funny thing though about, and this is something that sort of in this Orthodox moment when the children of adults who were sort of liberated by the culture.
So the idea just being okay, suddenly this is the tufa formations. This is like, okay, water line, everything seemed normal, bright, happy day. You remove the water and you see, oh, wow, like it didn't take, now I see more clearly, the rapid taking away and changing and transformation of the context reveals something new that was there the whole time.
Issues with, because the concept
appetites, they had limits as well.
I would have liked to get home earlier before anyway. And now I can say, I'm not drinking. I would like to be home.
In fact, she had an introverted side that hadn't been able to express herself because she was so busy being a pleaser extrovert because she was in a bigger body and she wanted people to like her.
I am not as much of a night owl as my husband is. And I like to read my Kindle a little bit before I go to sleep at night. Yeah. And I just don't do well the next day if I'm out really.
All right. So we see like a perfect example of like, oh, she was always an introvert. She always wanted to go home early from these parties they were attending. She always wanted these things. But well, guess what? It was just below the waterline. It was just below. It was always there. It was always there, but it was just below the waterline. And once again, this doesn't make good or bad, but these things are just have always been here. And we say, oh, I never noticed. I never knew that you wanted to go home early. I never knew. Well, how could you not know? Well, because I didn't, the wife didn't want to push away a potential suitor because she felt big, and therefore she did the things that he wanted to do. And now that she's skinny, she doesn't feel like she needs to people please as much. And now we're just revealing all this whole monologue is just, oh, well, this was always here, and now it's reasserting itself. Now the context of me feeling I think I need to people please to make sure that people want to be around me, just the draining, just to reveal this truth that's always been true. And now,
longer the case, and this new body I haven't really been able to touch or explore or anything like that.
It's not as accessible.
It's not. No.
Was that just another appetite that the drugs reduced?
And to this exact point, oh, we used to have this great, intimate life together. Oh, draining. Oh, suddenly, oh, I know I did that because I wanted to keep you close to me. But now I don't feel like I need to people please. I don't feel like I need to do what you want to do all the time. Draining. Does that make, and once again, this is not a good or a bad. There's no hero or villain in this story. It's just people who are expressing their choices, expressing their values. And now we're just seeing this new thing that was always there. It was always underneath the waterline, but we could never talk about it. And, that creates a tension of its own.
Boost?
I mean,
Sex.
It was a conversation, and and now it's a fight, and one of us is going to walk away angry because we're not seeing eye to eye on something.
and their fights could be loud and ugly.
So I started really wondering who I was with. I mean, this person that I've been with for better part of 15 years really started to take a change. Maybe
Javier said to me, we go from 0 to 60 in like seconds.
bottom line is, it became very confusing to me as far as how to manage our relationship. I would even comment to her. I'd say, I don't recognize you. I need a roadmap. I need a roadmap to figure out, what's within bounds and what's out of bounds. I don't feel like I can be myself with you the way I used to be, because I don't want to offend you, or I don't want to make you feel badly.
And so, yeah, same idea. Just the water that they swam in is going away, and there's new things being revealed. And suddenly, the bonds that were holding them together, the way they used to socialize together, the way they were intimate together, all these things are suddenly drain, going down, and revealing something new. And it's funny, she is reasserting herself. She's reasserting her rights, and she doesn't want to do this and doesn't want to do that. But suddenly, the husband in this situation also feels like, I don't know if I can be myself. I have to change and adapt, because suddenly everything that I try with her is not working. It might be making her angry. It might be seen as inappropriate. So how does he keep up with her? How does he keep ultimately the marriage together? And I think that
So he's walking out.
the
Taught at Calvin College and then eventually taught at Fuller Seminary. And he said, my wife has been married to 5 different men, and all of them are me. One of the things that happens in a marriage long term is that people undergo transformations in their life. They change. And this is a significant transformation. And part of what couples have rituals and routines that they do that strengthen the marriage. So one of the things that my wife and I like to do is car trips. We like to do car trips together. And we, and so there's all of these fairly mundane daily things that couples do together that sort of strengthen the relationship. One of these, Luce Meads was a notable scholar in the Christian Reformed Church, taught at Calvin College, and then eventually taught at Fuller Seminary. And he said, my wife has been married to 5 different men, and all of them are me. One of the things.
Yep. So this idea of like, now, we've revealed what's underneath the waterline. We've gone through the process. Like, what can we do? Now that we've revealed something where we don't know where we stand, we don't know how to engage, we don't know how to keep ourselves close to one another. Like, oh well, flexibility, and we'll be flexible.
Sex life with doesn't want it or doesn't like it, I can imagine that that's totally devastating. Did she tell him that that's how she felt?
I mean, he could tell, but he very much.
The answer was no. Okay? The answer was no. She did not tell him. It's so interesting.
And that's the funny thing there is just like she didn't say these things before she was skinny or feel in a smaller body. She could say these things. And now she feels like she can say these things. And now they have to be flexible. But I think that what perks me up about the idea of flexibility is like, well, the ultimate form of flexibility is just getting a divorce. It's just like, okay, you do your thing, I do my thing. We're both happy, but we just never talk or see each other. And I think that, the rise in divorces, the rise in this idea of, well, we'll just live together, but sort of live parallel lives. Like that's the ultimate form of flexibility because it's like, oh, do you need love from me? No, the love from you it can go. And do you need love from me? No, I know. I'd rather paint and do my own thing and play pickleball with my friends. And okay, so we're flexible. We're flexing. It's flexible. It's flex. We just live these completely separate lives. That's the ultimate form of flexibility. And so what's the moral of the story is like what you build your life on, the vows that you take, what you build your marriage on, like those are gonna reassert themselves. And if you think that there's like, I've been married to 5 different people. If you think there's not going to be shifts and changes and alterations of your marriage, like you're just wrong. It's not gonna be static. And what you reveal is going to tell you a lot about what you built. And if you're not building towards the good, you have no control over how you if you're able to stay together in the tough times when the waterline recedes. And so this is where I want to bring in some Bible verses, because the Bible, I think, does a very good job of warning us of you aren't in control, so do your best to put what is most important first. But Matthew chapter 24. But understand this: the owner of the house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming. He would have kept watch and would have not let his house be broken into. So also you must be ready, because the Son of Man will come in an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is faithful and wise? Who is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. It's like, you don't know when Ozempic is knocking on your door. I mean, the number of people who've tried to lose weight and tried to lose weight and tried to lose weight and never have been successful is enormous, enormous, enormous. And then all of a sudden, a drug is invented, a landmark drug is invented, and not only can people lose the weight, they can keep it off, they can kind of change their identity. That is the returning of the master. That is saying like, okay, like you can't rely on feeling like your wife is very self-conscious, and the reason that she gives into your demands is because she's very self-conscious about her body. That's what stabilizes your marriage. Like that will be taken from you, and and it's like you won't be ready when that's taken from you. And like what state will you be found in? Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall, because its foundation was on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. The idea here of just being like, what have you founded your relationship on? What it will be revealed when the waterline shifts. Like what is the nature of that, of what is the foundation of your marriage? And I think that Christ gives us a great example of, well, submit to one another, love one another if you love me, out of reverence for Christ. And this idea that the other and the other person is to be held as in high of just as in high of a regard as you is such a key idea, because what I see in a lot of these stories of modern marriages is the idea of, what can I get out of this marriage? Oh, can I get intimacy from this person? Can I get them to socialize with my friends? Can I get them to be at home? I want someone to be at home when I get home from work. I want someone to cook dinner with me, and I want someone to have to do the dishes with me. And it's a lot cheaper to live as two than it is as one. And these are all things that are for yourself, that you're looking to garner for yourself. Whereas holding the other person in higher esteem, not only is that more stable, but it's a way of creating something greater than just the individuals who enter into the marriage. And it's a way of creating this, bringing into embodying the ideal of Christ-like love. And I think the marriage is so important because, yes, does Christ tell us to love the poor? Yes. Does he tell us to love the sick? Yes. But those are hard things. Like, let's be honest, those are not easy tasks. Marriage is a perfect image of, you get to choose who you get married to. You get to choose who you want to be with and who you're going, at least in a modern context, you get to choose. And can you submit to that person and love that person for the rest of your life? And can you learn to be the type of person who can submit and love another person? Because that will point you to Christ. Now, of course, this is like sort of like high and like, oh God, we want to love like Christ, and we want all these things, and we want, how am I going to walk away and do any of these things? Well, like, I just want to start to create the conversation and create the desire for people to change the way they live, to change my own heart, and create that. And what does that look like? How do we convey that story? Well, we're going to convey that story in a story. So I think to end this video, I just wanted to point to sort of a traditional Christmas story that I think in a very short period of time perfectly represents what it looks like to not live in a transactional relationship, but to live in a relationship founded on that Christ-like love. This is The Gift of the Magi. It's a pretty famous story, but if you already know it, I'd encourage you just to listen one more time. Della and Jim were a young couple, very much in love, but very poor. It was Christmas Eve, and Della only had $1.87 to buy Jim a present. Della looked at her beautiful long hair in the mirror, which was her most prized possession. Then she had an idea. She rushed out and sold her long hair to a wig maker for $20. With the money, she found the perfect gold watch chain for Jim's prized gold watch. When Jim came home, he saw Della with her short hair and was speechless. Della worried he wouldn't find her beautiful anymore, but Jim, with a strange look, handed her a package. When Della opened it, she gasped. Inside were beautiful, expensive combs that she had admired for her long hair. Della's eyes filled with tears, but then she smiled and gave Jim his present, the watch chain. Jim looked at it, then at Della, and gently told her that he had sold his gold watch to buy her the combs. The presents were useless without the things they were meant for, but their love was the greatest gift of all. Jim and Della realized they had both sacrificed their most valuable possessions out of love for each other. All right. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment, and I love your feedback. Anything that you guys have to add to the conversation, I love to see responses. Thanks, guys.